Brilliant. Good morning, good afternoon, good
Good
evening.
afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank
It's 6 o'clock on the nose,
There you
wherever the
go.
camera is.
Brilliant. Spot on. Thank you so much for joining me again, for coming
That's
back for
okay.
round two. Really grateful, really
Oh,
appreciate
I
it.
obviously confused you or confused the watchers and the followers and the audio to obviously come back.
No, I got inundated with people saying, please, can you get James Trimble back? The value he added was absolutely fantastic. And first of all, I want to thank you for your DigiKit.
That's all right. So hopefully you got to have a look at it. You got to share it. You got to sort of see something about it. Feel free to share that with a couple of the guys and girls and your followers and what have you like that you prospect and work with.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's very kind of you. And it was excellent. So again, good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you want that DigiKit, please get in contact with me. Put it in the comment section. Send me a direct message, which James kindly provided, and I will happily share it with you.
For the avoidance of those people that don't know what we're talking about, if they haven't got out of bed and watched version 1 a couple of weeks ago,
where were you?
Exactly, where were you? Stephen will berate you later. But the DigiKit is something that we use here as a pre-list kit, as a presenting kit for the appraisal or the valuation, and then as a way of also getting across the message afterwards in a really slick, smart way of presenting your price for the property, all the features, the benefits of your agency, and then if you've done it really, if you've set it up and with your office, linking it through to a contract that you can DocuSign and go wild with. But the great thing is being digital, it's on point, it's on brand, you can adjust it live and you can look at the statistics behind it. So if you haven't had a look at that, go and have a listen to Stephen and myself talking about it a few weeks ago.
Brilliant, thank you. So let's welcome a few people. Morning, Ashley. Thanks for getting up so early. Dawn, thank you for watching. Please like it, share it. Let's get the message out. Give James some loving. 6 o'clock on a Friday, stopping him having barbecues and all his beers and stuff like that.
It's been a week of needing a beer, I'll tell you that right now.
So I understand you had an emergency lockdown out there.
We had an emergency lockdown in South Australia. So for those that are not sure, South Australia is the state right at the bottom. There's about 1.7 million people in SA at the moment. And because we had a pizza guy that was obviously probably taking cash in hand as a job, he didn't want to tell the COVID trackers where he'd been, so they couldn't trace a potential outbreak. So he lied, and as a result, that put the whole state in lockdown for a few days. And then they found out he wasn't lying. So we all came out of lockdown very sharpish. To put it into context, and I know that it's 3-4 degrees there, Stephen, because I can tell the way you're dressed, it's toasty. The lockdown coincided on a couple of 40-degree days. So we had Thursday working from home, Friday working from home, Saturday, normal Saturday, and then Sunday was back to normal. So most of the agents I spoke to actually dealt with it as a long weekend. And then come Sunday, when the temperature went back down to 26 degrees or what have you, they went back to doing their opens and their auctions. So it wasn't really lockdown in the sense of it's a lockdown, although there were emergency measures put in. What did it do to the market? Nothing, apart from a few scrambles to adjust settlements or completions and a few sort of rearranged auctions and what have you like that. But apart from that, it just moved the situation 2 or 3 days down the road. And I think what it also did is we had a couple of people realize that, oh my God, I haven't used my tech well enough. The paperwork's in the office. I'm here. What do I do? And well, if you'd put the data in the system, you could have just gone point, press send. So I think a lot of people had a realization of, oh, those things I told you I was going to get good at, I should have done it.
So let's touch on tech, because obviously you can compare the tech from being in the UK, obviously with Wentworths, going over to Australia and Raine and Horne. What are there similarities? Are there differences? Are there stuff in Australia that you think, well, in the UK this would work really well?
I think DigiKit would work really well. And when we touched upon and we talked about last time, which was about the value add, real estate is, and forgive me for repeating some of the old stuff, but real estate is the prime example of winner takes all. you know, well done, we really like you, we're going to give you the money to sell the house, the fee. Second prize does not pay the mortgage. Second prize does not pay the bills. You know, if this cycle of once every 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it is for that client selling their house, that cycle isn't there. So every little thing you can do to get to the point of winning the business is worth it. Things like we use with DigiKit, really great opportunity there just to get something over the line. But tech is not just one single thing. And I thought what I might do is just say, you know, these are just some examples of our tech, and I'll show you that there. But everything has to integrate with everything else, because if you don't have it done well and you don't have it done smart, you end up having to do 10 jobs, which is not tech's benefit. And one of the taglines I use, and I used it in the last meeting, is tech is your friend, not your replacement. So the personality of the consumer, the personality of the agent in the UK and Australia is exactly the same as we talked about last time, in the sense that we're here to add value. We're here to add, quite frankly, the most amount of money that the purchaser is prepared to pay for that property, so that the client walks away with the largest amount of net, well, dollar or pound. That's our value add proposition. Anything that we do that you think, wow, that's going to add something to it. Now, I still read Property Industry Eye, I still read Negotiator and Property Drum, bits and pieces like that, and we have the REB over here. And I've seen it again today. This is a game changer, really. You know, everything's a game changer. Well, if you don't use it, if you've got a game-changing product, but you don't use the data, you don't put any information in, the only game it's changing is you from being average to worse. So game changer, too broadly used. What it is actually, is this going to improve the business? Is it going to improve what you do? Is it better than anything else out there? Is it simpler? Is it a 2-minute job as opposed to a 10-minute job? So we use social media advertising. It does things that it reviews things every half an hour and produces 72 ads. You know, we ID it as Amplify over here, and I know that it's used by a couple of firms over in the UK. But that review every half an hour to make sure that the adverts have been targeted, that really is, that's value add. Now, an agent can do it, but then an agent will spend all their time doing admin and never actually remembering to prospect, list, and sell. But the biggest thing that you see with any of the tech in the system is that the chances are the next advert, and I used to see this when it used to be newspapers as well, Stephen, and you'll go back to the Green Go days, people spend thousands upon thousands of pounds advertising for the client to come and buy this house, when the chances are it's already in your database and you haven't bothered contacting them. 100%. So all the tech in the world's brilliant, but if you don't use it, you've just advertised on the newspaper, you've just advertised on social media, you've just advertised to get your client. Chances are you already knew them, and you just, I don't want to say couldn't be bothered, but it's near enough as couldn't be bothered to do the system, the structure, the process, which I know you had Daniel Spencer on the other day to talk about. But then all of a sudden that becomes efficiencies. And then if you're running your own business, the difference between profit and loss could be a 15% profit margin. Well, actually, that could be a profit margin or saving of waste. And I know I'm preaching to the converted on this one.
Definitely. Look, you touched on my favourite subject, prospecting there. And I'd be interested to know what your stay in touch policy is there, because I know in the UK 95% of agents don't have a stay in touch policy. But I just want to share something which was interesting, yes, what you said earlier, because I did a training session yesterday with about 15 people. And what's interesting is a lady had moved into a property in February, and she's already ready to move out of her property, because I know you touched on there, you said people sell every 5, 7, 12 years.
There's a life cycle, and all the suburb change.
And you're right, but what's interesting now, I think, because we've had 2 lockdowns in the UK, people who've even bought within the last year have realised that their property is already too small because their partner's taken their office.
Well, I think the coronavirus has been quite important about that. A, it's taken the office, or B, people have realised the house is too small and they can't stand the partner, so they need to divorce. So we'll sell you something, and now we'll sell you two other properties. Two of my friends are having coronial babies, so they've used lockdown for other purposes, but they need a bigger property. And I think one of the other things about as well is the tech. What we're doing right now, we're chatting as if we're having a beer in a pub sat in front of each other, but we're thousands upon thousands of kilometres away or miles away. Is that tech's meant that tree change and sea changes for people are easy to do. You know, it's not uncommon for the Londoner to actually work in London and actually be commuting in from past High Wycombe, past Dorking, you know, Hemel Hempstead. It doesn't matter. The ring of influence with tech means that you don't need to be 5 days a week sitting in a cramped tube. You can be dialing in from places, you can be looking in from places. And again, that sort of tech from the agency perspective, one of the things that we did is we made it so you can prospect, you can work completely from a Wi-Fi or a 4G connection. You don't need to be sitting in a high street branch location. And I think the lockdown has meant that a lot of agents, if they haven't been using this efficiently, when tier 1, tier 2, because I know everybody's in slightly different phases in the UK at the moment, but when this all stops, the people that sat at home doing nothing are going to be left behind, whereas the people that have embraced the tech, have embraced dialing into their CRM, and have been prospecting, those are the people that are going to come out. And if they're not the market leading agents, they can't rely on reputation anymore. You know, reputations are easily lost nowadays, and if you haven't bothered to ring someone when someone else has rung them 4 times, then, you know, use lockdown efficiently. And I've got a few questions I was going to ask at the end, and one of them was, what are the agents doing for when this finishes? Because I tell you what, we have absolutely come out of what is essentially Corona Australia absolutely on fire. Not bushfire on fire, but absolutely charging out the blocks. Yeah. You know, Adelaide house prices are the highest they've ever been in history, full stop. Now, go back to March when the news hit that Corona's going to do this and you're going to go home and you're not going to have a job and your coffee shop's not going to work and you can't go for a beer. We'd have thought house prices would have been a 1990s price, but not at a record price.
Yeah, look, and it's exactly the same in the UK. It's been absolutely crazy. Obviously, we've got the stamp duty holiday, which ends March. So, you know, there's a lot of pressure on solicitors, brokers, lenders, agents to get that through. I think it came out yesterday that Hackney Council have said, well, we're not going to be able to supply searches for then. So, you know, don't rely on it, full stop.
Which would have kicked in and you would have gone point, click, press, done. But, you know, that's where tech needs to benefit our society. You know, we've got something called PEXA here where you can technically exchange at the end. I can go, are you ready? Are you ready? Click, point, press, done. And we're done. And we can settle that way. Councils rely on employing people, it feels, to employ people for the sake of employing people.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so morning Rav, morning Milton, thanks for joining, morning Sharon, 100% agree, pick up the damn phones. So what are you doing then? What is your stay in touch policy?
So I think stay in touch policy, we've got 300 offices, about 3,500 stuff. So I can't say that this is our policy. This is an encouraged policy that you should be staying in contact with them. You should be staying in contact. I mean, I talk to agents majority of the time. I don't talk to vendors because the role that I do. But my stay in touch policy is that I'm talking to them on a monthly basis, or I'm emailing on a monthly basis. So when I'm talking about getting an agent to come on board and rebrand and to join us, that's usually off the back of a 2 to 3 year conversation cycle. So, for example, we're doing something at the moment where we'll hopefully have a buy-in of an office in January. That conversational coffee started back in July 2018. Now, if you're starting with, hey, can I buy you a house? Can I sell you a house? It doesn't start like that. And the stay in touch policy starts way before you think you should be starting your stay in touch policy. Your stay in touch policy is related to what do they think of your logo? What do they think of your brand? What do they think of you as a person? What does your Google review say about you? What does your Facebook review say about you? What does my mate say about you? So all of that composite comes into the stay in touch policy, because brand of repute, you can stay in contact gently and slower and not as regularly. If you're trying to build your brand, you've got to add your value, but you've got to get your message across that they go, well, actually, I've got to teach them what my brand's about. I've got to teach them what my values are. And how am I doing that? So your stay in touch policy becomes a slightly different proposition of brand building as well as staying in touch. I watched something with Tom Panos a few weeks ago, and he said that the typical touch point now for a client between having a conversation with an agent and making a decision to invite you into the property is 24 touch points. Not 3 phone calls, a letter drop that it might have been in the old sort of era. But that 24 things might be a newsletter once a month. There's 12 across a year. You know, it's little things like quarterly newsletters and letter drops in the street saying, hey, look, we've just sold a house on your street. Great news for you. That's gone for 400. Yours is a bigger block on the corner. Let me come and have a look at it, tell you actually how that exactly going to impact on your property. It's also little touch points like really sort of knocking on doors and saying, look, we've got an auction here on Friday night. I'm really sorry. The area is going to be really busy. Look, here's my card. Would you like me to keep in contact with how the house, the auction goes? Well, if they're going to say yes, then they've got obviously property interest. But don't go, then I can sell your house. You know, it's the step-by-step process. But all the way through COVID lockdown, all the way through that sort of slowdown, that work from home encouragement should be working, continuing to hate the word touch base, but it is used frequently in the industry. But touch base, add value to the conversation, impart knowledge. Now, if you can talk to your clients and go, look, I know we didn't expect this with COVID, but did you know that actually Adelaide is seeing the largest price point? Actually, now's the time to make that move to the coast. Now, we've got half the number of stock that we'd have on the market. You can take advantage of, A, the price has been big, and people are fighting for your property. Let's get your house on the market.
So I see you've got Dominic on here. Good work, JT,
yeah.
And loving the accent. Welcome, Dominic. Thanks for joining us. Morning, Ashley. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dom.
So have you gone Australian then?
You have to adapt to your client base.
Very good.
That's all I'm saying.
What was it like before, Dominic?
Don't encourage Dominic.
So coming back, what other tips can you give people? You talked about 24 touch points.
I think if you look at that touch point, if you look at that sort of that connection, that sort of point, it's adding value. But everything you do affects everything you do. So if you're putting DLs, letter drops, letters out, and you're photocopying them. I mean, I collect them. I go into people's properties. I get them all the time, and some of them are awful. They absolutely break your brand. So you can be prospecting perfectly on the phone. You can be smashing the phones left, right, and center. But then if you're putting out A4 pieces of paper that have got your logo photo and they're all wonky and they're all horrible, or they've been cut with the old sort of slicer in the offices, it looks like you can't market yourself. How are you expected to market your client's property? If you can't market yourself, how are you expected to say, we're brilliant, we're amazing, come and have a look at what we do so I can market your property to the best of your ability? As a result, long down the line, that comes back down to, if you present badly, you just present cheaply, guess what happens when you have a fee conversation? Where's your uniqueness? Where's your value add? Where's your proposition to say, look, I know this is going to be an expensive conversation or a great value conversation, or I'm going to get the cheap guy in because he's going to do it cheap because he looks cheap. And do you know what? It's a lot easier to climb down the price point than it is to climb up the price points.
100%. Definitely. So what's your ideal day there? What do you recommend as an ideal day? When do you actually prospect?
Morning.
Okay. Why?
So if you're not working on your business and you're working in your business, you've got a very different dynamic. So what you end up doing is when you look at your income stream, to do this. Because you're busy selling, then you realize you've sold everything, and then you've got to prospect again, and then you've got nothing left to sell because you're prospecting. So you've got to have a regimented structure. You've got to relax within that structure, that regimented diary, whether that be a 3 meetings in a sort of 8:30 to 9 o'clock, or a Tuesday sales meeting, or a Thursday sales meeting, where you're basically following your structure. I did structure, I worked in structure, we had structure when I was back at Kinley and so on, and it works. The morning was about prospecting. The morning was about what am I going to do to eliminate that sort of roller coaster, that peaks and troughs in my business. That every day I'm prospecting and every afternoon I'm doing viewings, doing appraisals and working on the system. If you're talking to voicemails, great, talk to voicemails, they'll ring you back. But if you don't set aside prospecting hours, sacrosanct prospecting hours, do you know what? The guy across the road who's just come out of uni, who's been told to do this, do this, do this, and this will be the result, will be doing it. The tech will be assisting them, and your market share will diminish. You cannot live on your reputation if right now you're not allowed to get face-to-face with people.
So I ask this question to agents when I do my training sessions. So let me ask you, James, would you agree with this statement? Market appraisals are the lifeblood of any agency, and if you don't have them, you're stuffed.
Well, I come back to, you've got to look at it all. Prospect, list, sell. No prospecting, nothing to list. Nothing to list, nothing to sell. Nothing to sell, you're bankrupt.
That's it. It's simple, isn't it? You master those three disciplines and one more, negotiating skills, and then you're there.
Sell it. But if you're not ringing people to get it, you're not going to get it. And you'll drop lucky of, oh, my friend lives here and you sold him something 5 years ago, here are the keys. But that is because for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, there's been a solid investment in goodwill, prospecting somewhere. People do slack off, people do rely on referrals and reputation. But if you've got an area that you're getting a constant influx of new people, I mean, to go back to sort of working with Dom, we went out to that hour ring around London. We knew that the people in that area, I mean, I remember looking, I think it was Farnham, looking at 60% of the buyers from Farnham were from London. So you couldn't rely on the local reputation. So the brand conversations were quite easy. Like, you know, we just sold your vendors property, we just sold your buyers properties in London. They're coming down the train line. They want to transact with you because they trust you. They know you. But again, if you're not doing the beginning, the middle bit doesn't happen and the last bit doesn't happen. So if you're not all over your numbers, and you should be, what's your conversion rate? What's your listing ratio? What's your fee ratio? How many appraisals do you need to do? How many calls do you need to do to get into the next level? You know, is it 100 calls a day? Is that enough? 100 calls a day should look like what? Okay, well, what does 50 calls look like? What does that look like in Q1? What does it look like in Q2? What's the lead-in time between the conversation? So if we go back to what we're saying with Tom Panos, 24 touch points, is that not necessarily 24 phone calls, but if you count all the way back, 6, 7 years between cycle of moves, if you're not letter dropping, if you're not got them on your database, you're not mining the data, and you're not calling people. And I know when we had it with the CSD department, client services, you talk to people, you get people back in, they want to deal with you. And if you've done a good job, they're more likely to get back in with you. But if you've done a good job and you've not said hello to them, well, the next person's going to come in, get to know them over 3 or 4 phone calls. That's going to creep into, actually, I'm thinking about selling, or like that client you were saying, about 9 months, I'm ready to sell. And you're going to get back in. But prospecting, listing, and selling. If you don't prospect, you've got nothing to list. And prospecting gets you in the door. Getting in the door then comes down to personality. And if you're an absolute idiot and you haven't got your style of appraisal sorted, because most people will go in and go, well, I'm here. They've got no structure to what does the evaluation appraisal conversation look like? Where do you start? Where do you finish? What happens in between? At what point do you look around the house? What point do you talk fees? What time do you talk features and benefits? And if you haven't got that level of structure in place, are you winging it on every evaluation and appraisal? And I would say most people, hand on heart, if they're being honest, are winging every evaluation appraisal. They're not following a set structure. And I'm sure, Stephen, you've got systems where you can go, well, actually, this is the best valuation appraisal to do. You start here, you go here, you go here, you finish there. The follow-up looks like this. And I know Daniel Spencer talked about this the other week, is if you know what you're doing and you do that 5 times, it'll get better. The 5th one will be brilliant. If you do 50 appraisals exactly the same way across the year, then it is going to be brilliant by the time you get to the end. And at the end of the day, an appraisal, you're on stage, it's like a performance. You've got to learn your lines, you've got to learn your scripts, you've got to learn your dialogue, you've got to learn how to reverse the objections. And the 5, 10, 15 objections that you get will be the same 5 or 10 objections every single time. Oh, you're too expensive. What's your comeback? Oh, I'm not ready to list right now. What's your comeback? Oh, I don't want to pay marketing. Okay, what's your comeback? The other guy said he'd do it for 1.2% round the corner. What's your natural comeback? These are going to be the same objections. But if you're winging your appraisal all the time, it only takes one person around the corner to have refined it and practiced it for it to be perfect.
So what do you do? Professionals practice before they play. So
you've got to, haven't you? You would not stand on stage with a speech, not have written the speech, practiced the speech, worked out your tone, worked out the pause points, read the body language, and looked at it. And an appraisal should be no different, whether you are appraising in a great suburb in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, or sort of a nice property in the eastern suburbs of Adelaide, or you're going to Fulham, or you're going to Crystal Palace, or you're going to York. The same principles apply. You're dealing contact human to human. Your personality is going to be different to mine, so you've got to get it so it matches your personality and your body language and your enthusiasm. But at the end of the day, you can wing it all you want, but it's like acting. The actors that prepare the lines, practice their lines, are the ones that win the Oscars. And funnily enough, they make the most money. Funny that.
Strange that, isn't it? Morning, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Morning, Marianne. Thanks for joining us. Very kind of you. So early.
Now, one of the things that I would say is, and I know I've introduced you to a chap called James Williams, who's a sort of, I don't know if you're going to get him on your show shortly,
yeah.
But very high-powered, high energy. One of the things he talks about is practice, practice, practice. You've got to practice because you don't want to bleed in battle. So he talks about sweating in practice before you bleed in battle. Rehearse your lines, record yourself. And one of the things, a great little thing he says, record your own appraisal on this, stick record on, whack in your pocket, do your appraisal, listen back to it, and then rate yourself going, did I do that well enough? Simple. Most people have got one of these in the pockets, a recording device. You can't use it for broadcast, you can't for anybody else. But if you're recording it to see how you're stumbling over your words and you're stumbling over your fees, then you can work out your structure, then you can work out your scripts, then you can work out your dialogue. And then, you know what? I'd be very surprised if your conversion rate didn't go up.
100%. I was at an event or maybe 2-3 years ago, and I was sat next to a senior person at Fine and Country, and we started talking, and he said, what do you do? So I told him. So he said, what was really interesting is I went on a market appraisal and I recorded myself. And then I thought it was an amazing appraisal. I came back, I shared it with the team. And, we talk about the 80-20 rule. So listening and talking. And he was embarrassed at what he did. But he said it's a fantastic learning curve. And actually it's great. And he didn't know. If he didn't record, he didn't know. I mean, Milton's just come on. Professional athletes do exactly the same: record and review performance.
And again, the same sort of thing as Milton's just mentioned then. They practice all week. They're in training. If you look at your beloved football team, they practice all week. They train all week, hoping that Saturday or Wednesday, the optimum performance is in place.
Well, you would hope so, but it doesn't look like it.
I talked about last night, sorry. But usually you practice, you rehearse, your scripts and dialogues are your set pieces, the routines, they're going to come back to us with this, or this is going to be our counter in sport. They're going to come back to with a fee dispute. My counter is going to be this. No different. But it's about that rehearsal. It's about that practice. It's about that sort of repetitive nature, because at the end of the day, the law dictates in both England and Australia exactly how you must sell a house. The personality is the flavor that you can put on it, but you are dictated by law how you must do it. And the repercussions are there for a reason. So if you've got to sell 50 houses in a year, you're going to be doing 50 things exactly the same way. Why not do it 50 times brilliantly? And hopefully that might mean that it's 60 times next year.
Brilliant, thank you. Couple of final questions because I'm conscious of time, and I know you want to go and have a few beers and a barbecue, and it's most probably still 35 degrees there. So thank you.
Horrible.
Morning meetings.
Yes.
Direction meetings. How do they compare?
Short, sharp, concise.
Pardon?
Short, sharp, concise, and can't go on. I mean, half an hour tops. Too much waffle. Too many meetings for the sake of having a meeting. What are you there to achieve? What do you need to do? So you go back to my Kinley days. It was 8:30 till 9. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Half an hour, done. Because at 9 o'clock, we move on to the next scheduled project, which was prospecting. Too many meetings of waffle of what you're doing with this house. How's that going? What? Seriously, it's got to be structured. It's got to be focused. It's got to be in and out, done. Half an hour. In 24 hours, you're still working with your colleagues. You'll know what's going on. And most agency groups in the UK are sort of between 6 and 8 people. So it's not as if you've got 50 people that you have in some of our offices over here in terms of the monster offices, where you might have random interactions because you might not have seen them for 2 weeks. But if you, it's important from my perspective, it's short, sharp, concise, not waffly. If you want to have the waffle, get to the end of the day, sell everything, go and have a beer with the team, then drag it out for an hour or 3.
Okay, thank you. Short, sharp, and concise answer. Final question. You have come across loads of high performers in the industry.
Yes.
In the UK and in Australia. What have you noticed of the common things to be a high performer?
Drive and accountability. Simple. Drive and accountability. You've got to want to do it. You know, I've got some brilliant agents in the network that don't need to do it, but they, hang on a minute, why have I lost that listing? Why didn't I get into that house? They've got a drive that's absolutely unreal. You know, I've got people with rent rolls, a couple of thousand in the network. They don't need to work, but they've got the drive to work. They've got the drive to achieve. They've got the drive to succeed. The other side of things is accountability. You know, every single person can win a listing by adding 50 grand on top of the price and dropping 0.5% off the fee. Well, actually, the first person to be accountable is not your boss, it's you. And if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and go, I did the best I could possibly did today, or I achieved what I need to achieve, that's the accountability. So if you look at the top agents and you look at them, my performance wasn't good enough, therefore I didn't win this, that's the accountability. You know, it's the same with sports people. You know, oh, I didn't make that run, so I didn't get on the end of that ball. I didn't train hard enough, so as a result on Saturday, that 100 meters I did wasn't enough. Having the accountability to do it, but having the drive to go, I want more. I want to achieve more. Riding 1 million, great, well done. What's next? You know, this week we've opened 2 offices. Great. What's next? We're not, you know, we'll get those up to spec. We'll get those up to speed. The next is, right, I need 3 agents for each of those offices. We need to grow. What's next? What's next? Not sit down and go, congratulations, I'm done for the day. No. We've done that. That's yesterday's project. What's today's project? What's next? And having that drive and accountability in all, I would argue that probably top actors, top sportsmen, top business leaders, top agents are all the same. You've got to have the drive. You've got to have it in you, because too many people come into this industry, they come off their guarantee after 3 months. They go, oh, it's not enough. I can't survive on this. They've got no drive. But you know what? If you've made no phone calls, you've not tried hard enough, there's the drive. The accountability is you didn't try hard enough. Who are you accountable to? Person answering the phone or the person not making the calls in the first place?
Brilliant. Great place to end. James, thank you so much again for your time. Really thank you also for your introduction to Daniel. Daniel's actually going to be doing a masterclass here in the UK in January. Over the course of five days for 5 1-hour sessions. Going to touch on prospecting, he's going to touch on negotiating skills, as well as 3 or 4 other subjects as well. So I'm looking forward to bringing him over here. So thank you very much for the introduction, really kind. Thank you all for watching. On Monday, I've got Peter Tobin, who James, you may know.
I do know Peter, haven't seen him for a long time.
Yeah, so he was the ex-sales director and trainer of Foxtons. So I'm looking forward to him. Tuesday, I've got the exceptional Spencer Lawrence of Paramount. who, in my opinion, is one of the best letting agents in the UK. On Tuesday evening, I've got a gentleman from Canada who I heard at NAR in San Francisco last year, David Greenspan, who's going to be talking more about keeping touch policies as well and Mindshare. On Thursday, I've got Rob Wellstead from Lenwell, who has recently sold his business to Roman Leaders. And on Friday, I've got Hine Jose, who's sorted, became a new agent. John Williams, James, will be getting on as well. So we've been talking. So thank you for the introduction. And I also need to speak to Louis. So thank you. So everybody, thanks for watching this morning. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on replay, thank you. Have a really good weekend. James, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the beers, enjoy the barbecue, enjoy the surfing, enjoy the weather. Have fun.
All right. We'll see you soon. Take care.